There are wildflowers everywhere.
We're going to be taking a walk this morning in a woodland called Emmons Woods. It has a conservation easement on it through the Illinois Nature Preserve Commission. And it's a perfect spot to see the spring ephemerals because it's almost completely wooded. It's been preserved because of its canopy. There are lots of birds to hear here and see. And then to see all the spring ephemerals, which this is where the action is in the springtime. And later in the season it will move into the prairies. But right now the place to be is in the woodlands. One of the early signs of spring, there's spring beauties. They are probably the second to come out after hepaticas. They are white with pink stripes, sort of peppermint looking. Very pretty, delicate, a lovely little spring flower. So Dutchman's Breeches are another early spring flower that come out about the same time as the spring beauties. And they're called that because they look like, they're hanging upside down, but they look like what people said, the pants that Dutchman wore. And what's interesting about them, you can see that the pollen and such is at the bottom end, and bumblebees come along and they can hold on to the flower head. The pollen they'll rub their bellies against the pollen and carry it to the next flower, and that's how they pollinate other Dutchman's Breeches. So we're out here today looking for signs of spring, and we came upon this log that's covered with moss. It's just beautiful. But I also noticed some other things growing on it. So here is garlic mustard. Now this is an invasive species that we don't really like, but I just thought it was so interesting that it's growing right out of this log, and it's a great illustration of how logs break down and become soil. So first the moss grows on it, and then other little plants start growing. This looks like it might be a little sedge plant. I'm going to leave that one because it's so cute, and it belongs here. So this is how logs turn into soil, and this one is such a big tree, it's going to take a long time for it to sort of disappear.
Oh, there's the skunk cabbages.
So here we have one of the first signs of spring. It's called skunk cabbage, and it will even come up through the snow. So depending on the winter, we might see it in late February or March. Here you can see it's grown up quite a bit, and it has really interesting flowers, which you can see here. Another early sign of spring are the wild onions. So you can pick one, smell it. It smells like onion. They're edible. You want to eat them? So that's always exciting to see the onions.
See and smell the onions.
See and smell the onions. Yes, indeed. Here's a bean from a Kentucky coffee tree. And here's a walnut. There are lots of walnuts freshly on the ground in the fall. Here's another one. So if a squirrel or some other insect plants them, we'll have another little tree coming along.
Yeah, you can see some of the pods still up there.
So one of the really important things about spring ephemerals, which grow in the woodland area, is that they come out before the leaves have come out on the trees, so they're getting plenty of sunshine, and in a very short amount of time they are growing up, flowering, setting seed, and then most of them disappear until next spring. So that's why it's so exciting to see them, because it comes once a year. What's also important about them is that they provide nectar and such for the insects, which start coming out when the temperature gets above 50 or 55 degrees. So when we first started our walk this morning, we weren't seeing a lot of insects, but now that it's warmed up a bit, we're seeing bees all over this patch of false Rue Anemone and spring beauties. Here's some trout lilies. You'll notice some of them have single leaves, but this one has a bud. It takes about 7 years for a trout lily to mature, and you'll always see 2 leaves when it actually flowers.